I watched my husband die on our kitchen floor, and the only thing I could think about was the phone pressed against my ear and my mother-in-law's voice asking, "Is she gone?" My hands wouldn't stop shaking. Daniel's face had gone from red to purple to something grayish that I'd never seen on a living person. His mouth opened and closed like a fish pulled from water, desperate for air that wouldn't come. The sounds he made weren't human wet, choking gasps that seemed to come from somewhere deep in his chest. "Is she gone, dear? Can you check her pulse?" Patricia's voice was so calm, too calm, like she was asking if I'd picked up milk from the store. The thermos sat on the counter where she'd left it 30 minutes ago, still warm. I could see steam rising from the little bit of soup left inside. "For your strength, Claire," she'd said, pressing it into my hands with those cold fingers that always felt like death itself. "Drink it while it's hot. All of it." I looked down at Daniel, convulsing on the floor. His water bottle lay next to him, empty. The same bottle I'd poured the soup into while his back was turned, following some instinct I didn't understand. Some whisper in my brain that had been trying to warn me for months. "Claire, are you there? Answer me." "No," I whispered into the phone. My voice sounded strange, distant. "No, she's not gone." I heard Patricia's sharp intake of breath. "What do you mean? The soup should have—" She stopped herself, but it was too late. Everything was too late. "He drank it," I said, still watching Daniel's legs kick against the tile floor. "Not me. Him." The silence on the other end of the phone stretched like taffy. Then, "What have you done?" What had I done? My mind spun backward through the morning, trying to make sense of how I'd ended up here. I'd woken up dizzy again. That was normal now. Normal for the past 6 months, anyway. The room tilted when I sat up, and my stomach churned even though I hadn't eaten anything since yesterday afternoon. My hair covered the pillow more than usual. I'd been shedding like a sick dog, finding long brown strands everywhere. On my desk at school, in my soup, clogging the shower drain. Daniel had been so sweet about it. "You're just stressed, babe," he'd said, bringing me tea in bed. Teaching those kindergartners would make anyone tired. But I wasn't just tired. I was dying. I could feel it in my bones, in the way my body didn't work right anymore. Food tasted wrong. Water tasted sweet. My hands shook when I tried to write on the chalkboard. Last week, I'd thrown up in the teacher's bathroom and found blood in it. "Stay home today," Daniel had insisted this morning, tucking the blanket around me like I was one of my students. "Rest. I'll check on you at lunch." He'd kissed my forehead, and his lips felt hot against my clammy skin. Or maybe I was cold. I was always cold now. After he left, I'd lain there staring at the ceiling, trying to remember when I'd last felt healthy. Really healthy. It was before Patricia started visiting every week, before the special teas and soups and drinks she'd bring, always insisting I consume them right away, always watching with those hawk eyes until I'd finished every drop. "You're so thin, Claire. This will build your strength." My phone had rung around 10 o'clock. Patricia, of course. "Claire, dear, I'm coming over. I made you something special, my grandmother's healing soup. It's powerful, very powerful. It'll end your suffering, end my suffering." Those words had hung in the air like smoke. She'd arrived 20 minutes later, dressed in her expensive clothes that I now knew she couldn't really afford. I'd answered the door in my bathrobe, barely able to stand. She'd looked me up and down with something in her eyes I couldn't name. Satisfaction, maybe. "Oh, you poor thing. You look terrible." She'd swept inside without being invited, carrying that damned thermos. "This soup is exactly what you need. I made it just for you. You must drink it all, and drink it hot. The herbs only work when they're hot." I'd taken the thermos with numb fingers. It was heavier than I expected. "I'll pour it for you. Where are your mugs?" She'd moved through my kitchen like she owned it, opening cabinets, pulling out my favorite mug, the blue one with the chipped handle that I'd had since college. The last thing my parents gave me before the accident. The soup was pale brown, with strange bits floating in it. It smelled sweet. Wrong. "Drink up, dear." I'd raised the mug to my lips, but something stopped me. Some animal instinct buried deep in my DNA that recognized poison even when my conscious mind didn't want to believe it. That's when Daniel came home early. "Mom? What are you doing here?" They'd exchanged a look. Quick. Guilty. "Just bringing Claire some healing soup. She needs her strength." Daniel had smiled then, and for the first time in 3 years of marriage, I'd seen something cruel in it. "That's so thoughtful of you, Mom." He'd gotten himself water while they both watched me hold that mug. Watched and waited. I'd stood there in my kitchen, weak and dying, holding soup made by my mother-in-law, while my husband and his mother stared at me with eyes that suddenly looked nothing like love. That's when I knew. And when Daniel turned his back to drink from his water bottle, I'd switched our cups. Now he was dying instead of me, and Patricia was screaming through the phone. "Fix this! Give him something! Make him throw it up!" I knelt beside Daniel. His eyes found mine, confused and betrayed. He tried to speak, but only blood came out. "I'm sorry," I whispered, but I wasn't sure if I meant it. The first time Patricia brought me tea was 3 months after the wedding. I remember because I'd just found out I was going to inherit my parents' life insurance money. The legal issues had finally been sorted out 8 years after they died in that car crash. $450,000. Enough to buy a real house. Enough to start the family Daniel and I had been planning. I'd told him over dinner, excited and crying at the same time because getting that money meant accepting my parents were really gone. He'd held me while I sobbed, rubbing my back in circles like he always did. "We'll use it wisely," he'd promised. "We'll make them proud." 2 days later, Patricia showed up at our apartment with a tin of loose-leaf tea. "I know you've been sad about your parents," she'd said, settling onto our couch without being asked. "This tea helps with grief. My grandmother swore by it. You drink a cup every day, and the sadness just melts away." The tea had tasted strange, bitter, with a sweet aftertaste that clung to my tongue. But Patricia watched me drink it with such hopeful eyes that I'd forced down the whole cup. "There's a good girl," she'd said, patting my hand. "I'll bring you more next week." And she did. Every single week for months, sometimes twice a week. Always with something new, special teas, homemade broths, vitamin drinks she'd mixed herself. Always insisting I drink them immediately, while they were fresh or hot or potent or whatever excuse she used. "You're so good to me," I'd told her once. Genuinely grateful. I'd lost my parents when I was 19. My Aunt Helen had raised me, but she was busy with her pharmacy and her own life. Patricia's attention felt like having a mother again. Daniel had seemed happy about it too. "Mom's really taken to you," he'd said. "She was never this warm with my ex-girlfriends." I'd felt special. Chosen. What a fool I'd been. The sickness started small. I'd feel nauseous after Patricia's visits, but I blamed it on the strong herbs. Then came the headaches that wouldn't quit. The exhaustion that made climbing our apartment stairs feel like scaling a mountain. My hands started shaking so badly I had to stop writing on the whiteboard at school and use the computer projector instead. "You should see a doctor," Daniel had suggested. All concern and furrowed brows. I'd seen 3 doctors. They'd run every test imaginable. Nothing explained my symptoms. One suggested chronic fatigue syndrome. Another thought maybe early onset lupus. The third said it was probably just stress and prescribed anxiety medication that made everything worse. Daniel had come to every appointment, holding my hand, asking intelligent questions, the perfect husband. Meanwhile, his mother kept bringing her potions. It was Daniel who'd suggested I update my will. "Not because anything's going to happen," he'd said quickly. But you're sick, Claire. We should be responsible. Make sure everything's in order. That had made sense at the time. I was sick, mystery illness sick. Better to be prepared. I'd left everything to Daniel. Why wouldn't I? He was my husband, the only family I had besides Aunt Helen. Then came the life insurance conversation. Your policy from work is only $50,000. Daniel had mentioned one night, casually, like he was commenting on the weather. That wouldn't even cover funeral costs these days. We should increase it. I'm 28. I'd laughed. I'm not dying. But his face had gone serious. Claire, you're sick. Really sick. The doctors can't figure out what's wrong. What if it's something bad? What if, his voice had cracked convincingly, what if I lose you? So I'd increased my life insurance to $800,000. Daniel had helped me fill out the paperwork. He'd even paid the first premium himself. I've got it, babe. You just rest. I'd thought I was the luckiest woman alive. A husband who loved me so much he worried about my health. A mother-in-law who constantly tried to heal me with family remedies. Aunt Helen hadn't agreed. She'd come over one Saturday, unannounced, and found Patricia in my kitchen brewing another one of her special teas. I was lying on the couch, too weak to move. "What's in that?" Aunt Helen had asked, her pharmacist brain immediately suspicious. "Family recipe," Patricia had answered coolly. "Very special herbs." "What kind of herbs?" I don't share family secrets. The tension between them had been thick enough to cut. After Patricia left, Aunt Helen had sat next to me on the couch, worry creasing her face. "Claire, honey, I need to tell you something. Patricia came into my pharmacy last week." "So?" I'd mumbled, barely able to keep my eyes open. She was asking questions. Strange questions. About your health? About what medications you take? About whether you'd filled out a living will. Aunt Helen had gripped my hand. She asked how long someone could survive with kidney failure. "She's just worried about me," I'd defended. "Like you are." "No, Claire." It felt wrong. The way she asked it was clinical, detached, like she was researching something. I'd pulled my hand away, anger giving me temporary strength. "You've never liked her. You've never thought anyone was good enough for me." "That's not true. You're jealous. She's trying to help me, and you can't stand that someone else cares about me too." Aunt Helen's face had crumpled. She'd left without another word. We hadn't spoken in 2 weeks after that fight. 2 weeks during which I'd gotten so much sicker. My hair had started falling out in clumps. Not just shedding falling out. I'd wake up with handfuls on my pillow. The bathroom sink was always full of it. Daniel had been so gentle, helping me sweep it up, holding me while I cried. "You're still beautiful," he'd whispered. "Even if it all falls out, you're still my beautiful wife." Last week, I'd been getting jumper cables from Daniel's trunk. My car battery had died. Another thing going wrong in my life when I'd seen the bottle. Antifreeze. Bright green, almost full. "Why do we have antifreeze?" I'd asked him. "We don't even know how to change it ourselves." Daniel had appeared beside me so quickly I'd jumped. "Oh, that. Found it in the parking lot at work. Thought it might come in handy." He'd taken the bottle from my hands, closed the trunk firmly. "You shouldn't be lifting heavy things. Go rest." I'd gone inside, uneasy but unable to say why. That bottle haunted my dreams that night. I woke up this morning knowing I was going to die soon. Not in a philosophical way. Not in the way everyone knows death is coming someday. I meant soon. Days, maybe, a week at most. My body wasn't working anymore. When I tried to get out of bed, my legs buckled. Daniel had to catch me before I hit the floor. "I've got you," he'd murmured, his hands gentle on my arms. "Maybe you should stay home again today." I'd missed so much work already. The school had been understanding to a point, but I could hear it in my principal's voice during the last phone call. They needed someone reliable, someone who could actually show up. I should try, I'd started, but even talking exhausted me. No, babe. Rest. I'll stay home with you. You have that big showing today, the Patterson property. Daniel had hesitated, and something flickered across his face. Disappointment? You're more important than any sale. Go, I'd insisted. I'll be fine. I'll just sleep. He'd studied me for a long moment, then nodded. Okay. But call me if you need anything. Anything at all. After he'd left, I'd lain in bed staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out what was happening to my body. The symptoms had been swirling in my head for months, but today they arranged themselves into a list, clear and clinical. Nausea, vomiting, extreme fatigue, hair loss, tremors, confusion, kidney pain. That's what the ache in my lower back was, I realized. And the sweet taste in my mouth that never went away, no matter how much I brushed my teeth. I'd forced myself out of bed and crawled to my laptop. Every movement felt like swimming through concrete. In the search bar, I'd typed, progressive poisoning symptoms, kidney failure, sweet taste. The first result made my blood run cold. Ethylene glycol poisoning. I'd read the article 3 times, my hands shaking so badly I could barely control the mouse. Ethylene glycol. Antifreeze. Sweet tasting. Easily hidden in drinks and food. Symptoms include nausea, vomiting, metabolic acidosis, kidney failure, hair loss in chronic exposure, tremors, confusion, progressive deterioration that mimics natural illness, fatal if untreated. The bottle in Daniel's trunk, Patricia's sweet drinks and soups, my mysterious illness that no doctor could diagnose. No, I'd whispered to the empty apartment. No, no, no. But my hands had kept searching, kept clicking, kept finding more evidence. Antifreeze poisoning is often used in murders because it's hard to detect. The sweet taste can be masked in strong-flavored drinks. Small doses over time cause progressive organ failure that looks like natural disease. I'd stumbled to the bathroom and thrown up. Nothing came but bile and blood. With shaking fingers, I'd called Aunt Helen. Claire? She'd answered on the first ring. Honey, are you okay? I'm sorry, I'd sobbed. I'm so sorry. You were right. You were right about everything. What's happening? Where are you? Home. Alone. Aunt Helen, I think... I couldn't say it out loud. Saying it made it real. Can you come over, please? I'm already in my car. She'd arrived in 15 minutes, breaking every speed limit. I'd been sitting on the bathroom floor, too weak to move, my laptop beside me showing article after article about antifreeze poisoning. Aunt Helen had read them all, her face going paler with each one. We need to get you to a hospital right now, she'd said, reaching for her phone. Wait, I'd grabbed her arm. We need proof. If I just show up saying my husband poisoned me with no evidence, they'll think I'm crazy. Daniel's so charming. Patricia's so respectable. They'll never believe me. Your medical records show mystery illness, not poisoning. They'd have to specifically test for ethylene glycol, and even then, if I've been getting small doses for months, it might not show up clearly anymore. It metabolizes. I read about it. Aunt Helen had pulled up my records on her phone. She was listed as my emergency contact, had access to my patient portal. Together, we'd looked at the test results from 3 months of doctor visits. Your kidney function, she'd breathed. Claire, your GFR has dropped from 90 to 45. That's stage 3 kidney disease. How did they not? It happened gradually. Each test was just a little worse than the last. They thought it was chronic kidney disease, developing naturally. I'd felt weirdly calm now, like my body had moved past panic into some survival mode I didn't know I had. But it's not natural. Someone's been doing this to me. Daniel and Patricia. Saying their names out loud made it real. My husband, my mother-in-law, the two people who claimed to love me most in the world. The life insurance, I'd whispered. $800,000. And my inheritance, Daniel's the beneficiary of everything now. Aunt Helen's hands had clenched into fists. How much gambling debt does he have? I'd stared at her. What? I didn't want to tell you because I thought I might be paranoid, but I saw Daniel at the casino last month. He was at the high-stakes poker table, and he looked— She paused. Desperate. I followed him outside and heard him on the phone. He was asking someone for more time, said he'd have the money soon. 300,000, Claire. He said he needed $300,000. The room had spun. I'd gripped the toilet seat to stay upright. They're killing me for money. We're calling the police. My phone had rung, cutting her off. Patricia's name on the screen. We'd both stared at it. Answer it, Aunt Helen had whispered. Put it on speaker. I'd answered with shaking hands. Claire, dear, how are you feeling today? Not well, I'd managed. I thought so. I had a feeling. That's why I made you something very special. My most powerful healing soup. I'm bringing it over right now. I'm already in the car. This soup will end your suffering, dear. I promise you that. It'll all be over soon. End your suffering. It'll all be over soon. That's so kind of you, I'd heard myself say. I'll be there in 10 minutes. Make sure you're ready to eat. You need to consume it while it's hot. All of it. The healing properties only work if you finish every drop. She'd hung up. I'd looked at Aunt Helen. She's coming. With the soup. We call the police right now. No. The word came out stronger than I'd felt in months. If she brings poisoned soup, we'll have proof. Real proof. We can catch her. Claire! This is insane. She's going to kill me anyway. I'd grabbed Aunt Helen's shoulders. Don't you see? If we run now, they'll just try again. Daniel will talk his way out of it. They'll say I'm crazy, that my illness made me paranoid. But if we catch Patricia red-handed with poisoned soup, you can't drink it. I won't. My mind had been racing, forming a plan. But someone will. The doorbell had rung. Patricia was early. Aunt Helen had barely made it into the bedroom before I opened the door. Patricia stood there in her cream-colored suit, the one she wore to church on Sundays. In her hands was the thermos stainless steel, expensive-looking, the same one she'd used before for her special drinks. Claire, darling, you look absolutely dreadful. She'd swept past me into the apartment, and I caught her perfume something floral and cloying that made my stomach turn. Good thing I came when I did. You didn't have to go to all this trouble, I'd said, playing my role. The dying wife, grateful for attention, too weak to suspect. Nonsense. Your family. She'd set her purse on the counter, begun unscrewing the thermos cap. This soup is my grandmother's recipe. Very old, very powerful. She used it to cure all sorts of ailments. I'll bet she did. I'd thought. It smells wonderful, I'd lied. It actually smelled wrong, too sweet, with something chemical underneath. You'll have it in your favorite mug, yes? The blue one? Patricia had already been opening my cabinets, reaching for the chipped mug like she'd rehearsed this. How did you know which one? Daniel mentioned it. He tells me everything, you know. We're very close. Something in her smile had made my skin crawl. A mother and son should have no secrets. She'd poured the soup carefully, steam rising from the mug. Pale brown liquid with strange fragments floating in it. Herbs, maybe. Or something worse. Now, you sit down and drink this while it's hot. Every drop, Claire. The herbs only work when they're hot, and you must finish it all or it won't heal you. I'd taken the mug with trembling hands, not hard to fake since my hands always shook now. The ceramic was warm against my palms. Inside the blue mug was my death, served with a smile. I need to use the bathroom first, I'd said. Patricia's face had tightened. Can't it wait? The soup needs to be consumed immediately. I'm sorry, I'd let my voice break. My stomach, the sickness. I really can't wait. She'd studied me with those cold eyes, then nodded. Of course, dear. But take the soup with you. Drink it while you're in there. Don't let it get cold. I'd walked to the bathroom on shaking legs, the mug in my hands. In the mirror, I'd looked like a corpse, already hollow eyes, gray skin, hair thin enough to see scalp through it. This is what months of poisoning looked like. The mason jar was hidden in the cabinet under the sink, exactly where Aunt Helen had told me to put it after our phone call. With movements I'd practiced in my head, I'd poured the soup into the jar, sealed it tight. Evidence. Then I'd opened the canned chicken soup we'd stashed in the bathroom closet hidden behind towels where Daniel would never look, and poured it into my mug. My hands had shaken so badly I'd spilled some on the floor. When I'd emerged, Patricia had been standing right outside the bathroom door, waiting, watching. Did you drink it? Every drop, I'd said, showing her the empty mug. Something like satisfaction had crossed her face. She'd checked her watch. Good, very good. Now you should lie down. You'll start feeling the effect soon. Effects. What a gentle word for dying. I'd made it to the couch before my legs gave out. Patricia had sat across from me, perched on the edge of Daniel's recliner, watching me like a scientist observing an experiment. Patricia, I clutched my stomach, not entirely acting. The fear was making me genuinely nauseous. I don't feel well. That's normal, dear. The herbs are very powerful. Just rest. That's when I'd heard Daniel's key in the lock. He'd come home early. Of course he had. He needed to be here to witness my death. To call 911 with just the right amount of panic in his voice. To play the devastated husband. Mom? What are you doing here? He'd looked between us, and I'd seen it, the flash of excitement quickly hidden behind concern. They'd both been here for the show. Just bringing Claire her soup. She drank it all. Such a good girl. Patricia had smiled at her son, and they'd shared a look that made everything clear. They'd planned this together, mother and son. A team. That was thoughtful of you, Mom. Daniel had moved to the kitchen, grabbed his water bottle from the counter, the expensive metal one he took everywhere. I'm so thirsty. That showing was brutal. He'd unscrewed the cap, and time had slowed down. This was it. The moment. The choice. While Daniel's back was turned, reaching into the refrigerator for ice, I'd stumbled to the kitchen. I need water, I'd mumbled. Sit down, babe. I'll get it for you. But I was already at the sink, right next to his water bottle on the counter. My hand had moved to my sweatshirt pocket where I'd hidden the mason jar. Patricia couldn't see from her angle in the living room. Daniel's back was still turned. I'd poured the soup into his water bottle. All of it. Watched the pale brown liquid disappear into the clear water. Mixing, becoming invisible. My hands had moved on their own. Some part of me was screaming to stop, but a stronger part, the part that wanted to live, kept pouring. Here, Daniel had handed me a glass of water, taken his bottle. You should hydrate. You look terrible. I'd watched him drink. One long swallow, then another. He'd finished half the bottle. Thanks, Mom, for taking care of my girl. He'd smiled at Patricia. I don't know what we'd do without you. Patricia had checked her watch again. I should go. Let Claire rest. Call me if... She'd paused meaningfully. Call me when anything changes. She'd left. I'd heard her car start outside. 15 minutes later, my phone had rung. Patricia's name on the screen. I'd answered. Is she gone? And Daniel had started choking. No, he is. The phone slipped from my hand and clattered on the floor. Patricia's screaming came through the speaker, tinny and distant, as Daniel collapsed beside the kitchen table. His water bottle rolled across the tile, leaving a trail of liquid behind it. Claire! He'd gasped my name, confusion flooding his eyes. His hands clawed at his throat. What's happening? Can't breathe. I'd stood frozen. watching the man I'd married struggle for air. The man who'd held me on our wedding day and promised forever. The man who'd been slowly killing me for insurance money. "Fix this!" Patricia's voice shrieked from the phone. "Give him something! Make him throw it up!" I'd knelt beside Daniel, watching his face turn colors. Red, purple, gray. "I'm sorry," I'd whispered, and I'd meant it. Not sorry for what I'd done, sorry that it had come to this, sorry that the fairy tale had been poison all along. I'd picked up the phone with shaking hands. "I'm calling 911. "No. Wait, we can explain." But I'd already dialed on Aunt Helen's phone from the bedroom, keeping Patricia on the line on mine. "My husband is choking. Something's wrong. Please hurry." I'd given our address through sobs that weren't entirely fake. Patricia had burst through the door 2 minutes later. She must have been parked around the corner, waiting for my call, waiting to hear that I was dead. Instead, she'd found her son convulsing on our kitchen floor. "Daniel, baby, no!" She'd dropped to her knees beside him, and for a moment, I'd seen real emotion on her face. Panic, fear, love, even. Then she'd turned to me, and the love had transformed into pure hatred. "What did you do?" I switched the cups. My voice sounded calm, detached, like I was talking about someone else's life. "The soup you made for me." He drank it instead. I'd watched understanding dawn on her face. Then rage. "You stupid girl, do you know what you've done? That was a precise dose calculated for your body weight." "So you admit it?" Aunt Helen had emerged from the bedroom, phone in hand, recording everything. "You poisoned that soup." Patricia's face had gone white. The paramedics had arrived in a chaos of uniforms and equipment. They'd worked on Daniel with professional efficiency, asking questions I'd answered in a daze. "What did he ingest?" I'd handed them the thermos. "This. My mother-in-law brought soup. He drank it from his water bottle. I think some of it got mixed in." "What's in the soup, ma'am?" A paramedic had turned to Patricia. She'd opened her mouth, closed it. "Herbs. Just herbs." "What kind of herbs?" Family recipe." "She won't tell you," I'd said quietly. "Because it's not herbs. It's antifreeze, ethylene glycol. She's been poisoning me with it for months." The lead paramedic's eyes had sharpened. "You've been experiencing symptoms?" "Yes. Kidney failure. Progressive illness. I have medical records. We need to test this soup immediately." He'd turned to his partner. "Get Fompazole ready. If it's ethylene glycol, we have a window." They'd loaded Daniel onto a stretcher. He'd been unconscious by then, his breathing shallow. Patricia had tried to climb into the ambulance. "I'm his mother." "Ma'am, we need you to stay here. The police will want to talk to you." "Police?" The word had hung in the air like smoke. Patricia had turned to me, and I'd seen her whole facade crack. The refined society woman disappeared, leaving something desperate and mean underneath. "You've destroyed everything," she'd hissed. "Do you know how much debt he was in? How much I'd already paid trying to save him? You were supposed to be the solution. You were supposed to die?" I'd finished for her. "You were nobody. An orphan with no family except that bitter aunt. You should have been grateful Daniel even looked at you. That money was wasted on you. That money was my parents'." I'd felt anger then, finally. Hot and clean. They died and left it to me. Not to Daniel. Not to you. Me. The police had arrived as Patricia lunged at me. Aunt Helen had stepped between us, and 2 officers had grabbed Patricia's arms. "She poisoned that soup," Patricia had screamed. "She tried to kill me. Kill us." "We have you on recording," Aunt Helen had said calmly, holding up her phone. "Admitting you calculated a dose based on Claire's body weight. Admitting you'd been giving her something for months." I'd watched them handcuff Patricia, watched her face cycle through denial, rage, fear. "My son needed that money. He was going to lose everything. They were going to break his legs. He's my baby. The officers had read her rights while she sobbed. They'd found the bottle of antifreeze in Daniel's trunk that afternoon. Found texts between Daniel and Patricia going back 6 months, planning my death in careful detail. The tea is working. She's getting weaker. Just a few more weeks. Update the insurance first. They'd found Patricia's bank statements showing she was $300,000 in debt herself. Found Daniel's gambling records. Found the increased life insurance policy with Patricia listed as secondary beneficiary if Daniel died too. They'd planned to kill me, take the money, and disappear into their lie of a life. Daniel survived. The paramedics had been fast enough, and he'd drunk less than the lethal dose Patricia had calculated for my smaller body. He'd recovered in a hospital bed with a guard outside his door. I'd visited him once, to sign divorce papers. He wouldn't look at me. I loved you, I'd said. I needed the money more, he'd answered. Patricia had no such honesty. She'd screamed at her arraignment that I'd destroyed their family, that I was a murderer, that I'd poisoned her innocent son. The prosecutor had shown the jury my medical records, hair samples showing chronic ethylene glycol exposure, the thermos with enough antifreeze to kill me 3 times over, the texts, the recordings, attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, fraud. Patricia got 20 years. Daniel got 15. I'd stood outside the courthouse after the sentencing, Aunt Helen's arm around my shoulders, and tried to feel something. Victory, relief, anything. Instead, I just felt tired. Your kidney function is improving, Aunt Helen had said gently. The doctors say with time, you'll recover most of it. Most, not all. They'd taken that from me permanently, along with my ability to trust, to love without suspicion, to drink tea without wondering what's in it. We'd walked to Aunt Helen's car through autumn leaves. I'd enrolled back at the kindergarten, started therapy, began the long process of rebuilding a life that had almost been stolen. Sometimes I still dream about that moment in the kitchen, my hand pouring soup into Daniel's water bottle. The choice I made. My therapist says I acted in self-defense, that I had every right to survive. Most days I believe her. The settlement from Daniel's assets paid for a small house. I donated my parents' insurance money to a foundation for orphans. I couldn't keep it, it was soaked in too much blood. Last week, a student at school brought me soup her mother made. I'd stared at that container for a full minute before I could smile and say thank you. I threw it away untouched. Some wounds don't heal. Some lessons get written too deep in your bones. I'd learned that the people who smile widest can hide the darkest hearts. That family can be the most dangerous word in the world. That love, real love, doesn't come with a price tag. I'd also learned I was stronger than I thought. Strong enough to see the truth. Strong enough to act when acting meant the difference between life and death. Strong enough to survive. Aunt Helen had been right all along. I just hadn't wanted to see it. Hadn't wanted to believe that Daniel's love was performance and Patricia's care was murder dressed up in concern. But I saw it now. I'd never be blind again. The soup thermos sat in an evidence locker somewhere. A reminder that poison doesn't always taste bitter. Sometimes it comes gift-wrapped in family recipes and mother-in-law smiles. I'd poured it into his cup, and he'd drunk it all. And I'd survived. That would have to be enough.